Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation, Taking Action to Improve Employee Engagement. This event is part of SHRM's Webcast series. You can see a list of available and upcoming programs at shrm.org/webcast, and you can get details of new and upcoming webcasts from SHRM's e-newsletters, including HR Daily and HR Week. Before we get started, we want to provide you with some information about today's program. SHRM would like to thank our program sponsor, Glint, for helping make this webcast available to the HR community. And now about this presentation. The key challenge when it comes to improving employee engagement is also the most crucial, taking action to improve the right areas at the right time. Today's program will provide a global look at how managers and leaders are doing just that, taking the right actions to consistently improve engagement. We're pleased to welcome Catherine Garrod to lead today's program. Catherine is the People Involvement Manager at Sky. Her HR career spans across companies in consumer goods, utilities, behavioral health care, and entertainment. At Sky, Europe's leading entertainment company, she's promoted a culture of inclusion for best individual, team, and business performance. With introductions complete, we're ready to get started, and I'm pleased to turn over the webcast microphone to our speaker, Catherine Garrod.
Thank you very much. So it is a pleasure to share the things that I found to be really successful for taking action at scale. I'm going to talk today about two contrasting industries. So the first one is Sky. You've heard a little bit about that already. We are Europe's leading entertainment company. I've been with Sky for 18 months and I love it. We operate in the UK, Ireland, Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain and Switzerland. And we offer the best and the broadest range of TV content available through a multi-award winning next generation box or our contract-free streaming service. We also provide broadband, phone, mobile and much, much more, and everything is supported by best-in-class customer service. And our content includes Sky Original productions like Bounty Hunters, Tin Star and Riviera on Sky Atlantic. And we also have exclusive partnerships with HBO and Showtime, who give us first refusal on the content they produce. So an example would be Game of Thrones from HBO. And we also co-produce things to share risk and cost of creating content with HBO and Amazon. And an example of this would be a show called Britannia, which is coming in January. So in the UK, we have the rights, and in the US, Amazon have the rights. And all of this gives our customers access to the latest movies, drama, sports, and kids' entertainment wherever and whenever they like. And before Sky, I was really proud to put engagement at the heart of the utilities business. And we supplied electricity to 8 million customers across the UK. Around 85% of employees were on collective contracts, and around 50% of employees were out working in vans, up holes and down holes with no online access. So doing just the survey itself is a challenge. And together we transformed safety, financials and customer service. We achieved a double-digit increase on engagement in the first 2 years, and we went on to be rated by our own employees as a top 25 company to work for, which was published in the Sunday Times, and it was the most public accolade we could go for as rated by our own employees, and nothing we could do to influence that. And first we'll start with positioning engagement as a big deal. So it's not always obvious that looking after your people means looking after your business. So we help managers and leaders to understand the why before we begin with a survey. So if we think about employees, when we have a strong connection to why we're here, we can do our best work every day. And if that happens, our customers are loyal to Sky because we deliver great service, great content and great products. And when that happens, our shareholders are happy and Sky continues to grow, which is great for all of us and our careers. It means we're even more productive, we deliver even greater performance, and we're a magnet for talent. So this page is available on our intranet site for everyone to see, but we also push it. We use that in briefing packs with business HR and with leaders, but also for new managers who may be entering the world of engagement for the first time. And then when I look at the utilities business, when we were deciding whether or not to go for the public recognition, understanding the impact on performance was a big part of the conversation. And the chart we can see here shows the financial performance of companies who already had the Sunday Times accreditation. So the axis on the left shows money in pound coins, and along the bottom you can see the years. And the green line going across horizontally represents FTSE 100 companies. So if you'd invested £100 in a FTSE 100 company in 2008, it would have been worth around £125 in 2013. And if you'd invested £100 in a company that had this accreditation with the Sunday Times in 2008, it would have been worth over £400 by 2013. So it was an ambitious goal to go for this public recognition. We were the first company of its kind to go for it. So seeing the potential impact on our business performance was really compelling, and it gave the confidence that we needed to go for it. Now let's look at HR business partners. So ahead of the survey, we aim to give the HR business partners all the information they're likely to be asked on one page. So we're aiming to make the whole process feel as easy as possible so that they can really focus on guiding their leaders with what to do with the results when they arrive. So first up, we give them the practical information. So when is the survey open? Who does the survey arrive from? What's the subject line in the email? And the eligibility. So for us, this was around permanent and fixed term contractors. I was predominantly working with our UK and Ireland business partners, and then it was anybody that was active on our HR information system and the deadline that their information needed to be up to date by. The next section is all around the more tactical information. So when are the results going to arrive? Who's going to get them? What do business HR need to do to prepare their business leaders? What will the engagement team do in order to prepare sharing company results? And then on the right-hand side, we can see how we divide up the action. So managers can act locally on their own team's results. Directorates or business areas can act on for whole communities. And then Sky can act on the themes that everybody is talking about. And then there's some more general information at the bottom. So a frequently asked question document is available on People at Sky. So that's an intranet page that all of our employees can access. That Glint can reset and resend links, and the support address for anybody who needs that information, and also when the timed emails are due to arrive. So it's just about making it really simple. And we also use this briefing page for our HR service teams as well, so that if employees are in touch with them for any reason and they happen to ask about the survey, we're putting them in a good position to answer any questions directly there too. The next thing that we do for business partners is we give them access to the survey whilst it's live, so as they can see the responses coming in and they love it. We found for large populations that the scores are there or thereabout by the end of the first week, so our survey is typically open for 3 weeks. So what it does is it gives the business partners some confidence to navigate the tool, to ask lots of questions, to really prepare to guide their leaders when the results arrive in the business, sense check their thinking with the engagement team, but also be really ready to support their leaders to communicate the results and the strength areas and the areas of focus with their teams the day that the results arrive. And whilst the survey is open, we also flag any teams to business HR where we've seen people who've had a particularly high score or a particularly low score, or indeed people who've seen a big drop since the last survey or a big increase since the last survey. It just means they're really in front of the results before they land in the business, and they know where to celebrate and where to focus. And the other thing that we do is we help them find shortcuts to understand the insight quickly. So in this example, we can see a driver impact report, which shows how each question is scoring in relation to the ESAT, or the engagement score. So the blue line going across the middle there, the horizontal line, is the engagement score in this example, and all the dots show how all the questions relate to that score. So items on the right-hand side of the chart have a high statistical correlation with engagement across all of the respondents in the team. And the people who rate those drivers high or low also frequently rated ESAT high or low. And what this chart does is it helps them to prevent leaders wanting to focus on the highest and the lowest scores, and instead focus on the scores that have the most impact and matter the most to their people. And this is one of the charts that maybe takes a little bit of time to get their heads around. So it's brilliant that they have access to that whilst the survey is open and before we've released results to the business, because it's actually really powerful. And then the other thing that we do is we're really clear around the targeted support that comes from my central team, so that they're really confident that they need to just focus on the most senior leaders. So we hold all of our information on a handy intranet page, and this is available all year round, and we push it out during survey season through kind of targeted communications. We have recorded webinars available for anybody navigating the Glint dashboard or thinking about taking action on results, and again, they're available all year. So if somebody logs into their results maybe in a couple of months' time and they've forgotten how to find a certain feature, they can go back and watch the short video to quickly find that. And then the other thing that we do with business HR is, when I talked about we highlight those with low ESATs or a big drop, we will work with those guys to say, this is the advice and the support that we can give through one-to-one sessions or peer-to-peer led sessions. Which ones do you want to focus on? You know, who are the large people managers in your team, and let us take care of all of the rest. So now we've got all of our leaders and our HR business partners ready. How about everyone else? So survey branding can have a big impact. In all of our communications, we aim to give as much focus on people as any of the other things important to business success. And for the survey, we've developed a simple brand that's really visible throughout our locations and each of the survey phases. So the first phase is that the survey is coming with the dates alongside for people to see. The second phase is that the survey is live, so on air now. You can see we're playing to our broadcast industry. And the final phase is that the survey results are here. Thank you for having your say. We tend now to only use the digital elements, so the two in the middle there. But when we first moved to Glint, it was a new survey, it was a different approach, slightly different questions, it would be coming from a different provider. So we went quite big on the visibility. So the cardboard standees on the left were full person height-sized stands that were welcoming you as you walked into our restaurants or our reception areas. And on the right-hand side, if you can imagine getting your takeaway tea or coffee from one of our catering outlets, that's the thermal sleeve that wraps around the cup to stop your hand from getting too hot. So it was really, really visible everywhere. And you can see it carries the consistent message of real fast, real easy, and real actions. So people knew that it was important to take part. They recognised it when it arrived in their inbox, and they also expected to hear about results and actions really quickly. So now I'm going to share some tips on creating belief to make action feel achievable. And the first one is all around transparency. So the more people that can see the results, the more people can understand it, the more people can take the best actions on their results. And it looks like that's happening for lots of people already, so that's awesome. I'm a big believer in social accountability, so letting people see how they did compared to everyone else creates a sense of, if they can do it, so can I, and there's a bunch of people that I can learn from. So at Sky, we deliver results to every manager who had 10 or more respondents through the online survey tool, and they receive those results the day after the survey closes. That was a big change for us. So previously, results would arrive with HR, be cascaded through the leadership teams, and then employees would hear about results maybe a few weeks after they'd taken part. And it was a great change because it gave managers the information most important to their team. They get great feedback on what's working well and should be nurtured, and they know what needs some attention, which makes employee engagement a shared responsibility and really practical for everyone to respond. And for the managers who don't get 10 or more responses, we also let them know how they can be involved too, because their results will have been rolled up into the manager above them. So we ask them to go and check out the results with their wider team and talk about that as a big approach. And then at the utility, our operations teams were made up of engineers in depots all around the country where work was scheduled to connect electricity supplies or respond to power failures. And survey results arrived there through a more traditional cascade through paper form, but we made sure that when results did arrive, people could see how their depot had scored, compared to all the other depots in their region, and how all the regions had scored compared to all the other regions, how they'd scored compared to the business areas and the company as a whole. And when the lowest scoring depot saw that their results were the lowest in the region, their business area and the company, that was the thing that triggered a change for them. So I went and spent some time with that team and the leaders and all the engineers to talk about their reactions to the results and how they wanted to respond. And there was a whole history of things behind their scores, and some of the things dated back years. So I asked the leaders, what are the things that you can do and what are the things that people need to accept to move on? And I had exactly the same conversation with the engineers. And the biggest thing that I learned during that time was that they wanted somebody outside their own world to listen, to agree with the things that needed attention, and to encourage them to focus on the things in their own control. And they did, which resulted in every driver in the survey increasing the following year. They also saw a significant increase in their engagement score, and their response rate went up too because more people believed in the process. They were absolutely delighted. I was really proud of them, and so was the operations director. So we've talked a little bit about the lower scoring teams and fueling that belief to make action feel achievable. The other thing that we like to do is celebrate those that are highest scoring. So at Sky, we've coined the phrase our 80+ club. So this is all the teams, and we've got a whopping 245 teams that scored 80 or above for ESAT. And that's across 9 different business areas. So we've told all of the managers that they're in the 80+ club, and we're connecting them with people who want to learn from their experience. We've also let our exec team know who all those people are and who's really acing employee engagement so that they can celebrate their success. And it's been really great because I think traditionally, certainly in the UK, when people get results, they tend to go straight to where do I need to focus or what do I need to address. So it's really nice to be able to provide some focus on celebrating the success too. And then at Sky, when the results are available, the company results are available, we publish them on the intranet for everybody to see, and the appetite to read through them is huge. The number of likes and comments you can see top left, so it shows 68 people liked the article and 20 people commented, but that only really tells half the story. The figure we can't see is the number of unique readers, and our internal comms team tell us that over 3,000 is very good, and we typically see double that, and that stacks up with when we have stories about a new TV show or a celebrity coming to visit or a competition where people can win something really cool. So people love to read about people. They've asked us to give it to them straight, not massage the message too much, so we make sure we do that too, with a call to action that if you haven't heard about your own team's results yet, you can go ahead and ask your line manager, because all of the teams with 10 or more respondents have their own set of results. And at the utility, given half our employees had no online access, we sent a magazine home to every employee with a full breakdown of results. Now, this was a quarterly magazine that went out anyway, but you can see here we did a full takeover when we had engagement results to share with employees. So we showed all of the questions and all of the scores. We indicated whether they had gone up, whether they had gone down, or whether they had maintained. And we also included good and bad feedback in employees' own words from the free text comments. And we would link those comments to other examples. So for example, when we had a focus on well-being, we were able to demonstrate why we were focusing on well-being and the things that we were doing by using employees' own words. And in both organisations, employees responded really positively to that transparency, knowing that there was nothing to hide, and it also just generated lots more conversations around our strengths and our focus areas, which was really cool. And then thinking about sharing results locally in teams, we try and make it really easy for leaders. So we've created them with a PowerPoint template so that they can drop their results in to make it easy to share with their departments. The first thing you can see is it's a familiar brand, so from all the branding from Launch and Survey Live. They can drop in this is our engagement question, so how happy are you working at Sky? They can drop in where the crosses are their number, and you can see their results this survey and the previous surveys and how that compares. And then there's a strengths area slide, so again people can drop in the numbers, they can drop in the title of the driver and the question. and then their focus areas as well. So people can drop in the number and the title and the question. And this can be used, it can be attached to an email, it can be used face-to-face in a team meeting, it can be published on an intranet page, however people want to use it, what's more appropriate for their people and their audience and how quickly they can get them to people. And another thing on transparency that's been really helpful for people is sharing how the scoring works. So we show them kind of the numbers and the split and the breakup, and we also give them some examples so that they can relate that to their own teams. And this is really helpful for analytical minds. It lets them understand how it all works first, and then they can quickly move on to taking action on the results. And we describe neutral, so anything that's scoring in the grey is typically where respondents are either unsure or they're having an inconsistent experience. And what we say to people looking at their results, that if the comments back it up, teams can see a big shift here by committing to a consistent stance across the leadership team or through more regular communications. So that's a whole bunch of information on transparency. Now let's look on to tip number 2. So this is all about busting the myth and clarifying what's in people's gift to influence for their own teams. So we all know that there's no silver bullet to employee engagement, and things like the impact of a pay rise is relatively short-lived if there are obstacles in a team or a department that are affecting people's ability to deliver. So finding the right language for managers and leaders to fully appreciate their impact on teams' performance or engagement can be really helpful. So at the utility, so largely engineering minds, this model provided clarity around what was in line managers' influence, so the 60%, the red chunk. You can see some examples there around everyday interaction, individual performance review, team briefing, feedback, decision-making, career development, recognition, all of those everyday interactions. But what was really important is they could also see what was being taken care of elsewhere, so that shared responsibility sense as well. So the yellow chunk, the 25%, tends to be really helpful for our organisational development teams and communication teams in terms of what the organisation culture is. And then the next chunk, the 10%, is all around that work environment. So whether this is physical office or depot locations, or whether this is vans and tools and equipment to be able to do your job effectively, it's really important too. And then the last slice there, the executive team, that 5%. So, most people don't see those people very often. They still have an impact, but it's much smaller than those other things. But what that means is the exec can have in their minds when they're out face to face and spending time with people, they can think about what impact they want to make, what questions they want to ask, and what feedback they like to receive. So this model in the utility provided really great clarity. It was used repeatedly in conferences, in team meetings, in results packs. It really, really resonated. It really worked. And then at Sky, we take a slightly different approach. So, being a broadcaster, we love to tell a story, and we love to tell a story of how somebody has taken something from good to great. So you can see a blog here from Now TV. Now TV is our contract-free streaming service that I mentioned earlier. So this is the leader here talking about what they've done, what people have said, what they're doing, and the progress that they're making. And again, they see lots of people reading through those articles, and we really encourage people to talk about what they're doing regularly between surveys as well, because we did a mini pulse in between our full surveys where we just asked 2 questions. So the first question was, I believe action is being taken on the people survey, and the second question is our ESAT, our engagement score, so how happy are you working at Sky? And you can see on the left the unfavourable, neutral and favourable for the belief question, what that impact had on the ESAT. So the higher the belief that something was happening, the higher the ESAT score was in that kind of interim check-in survey. And from reading the comments, we could see that even if the action wasn't complete or it had only just begun, actually seeing the intention and that things were starting to happening was what was really important for people. So we really encourage leaders and line managers to refer back to, we're doing this because this was feedback in the people survey, as a bit of a regular drumbeat throughout the year, because that belief has such a high correlation. And then the last tip is probably the simplest one. So +1 is all about the collective impact, and this can be incredibly encouraging for lower scoring teams. it tends to be a good mind shift when they can see others with scores way above them and think, oh my goodness, I'm not sure where to begin. So the conversation here is around, look, if every team achieved a 1-point increase, it feels achievable, it's a step in the right direction for your people, and if all of the teams did that, it would have a collective impact on the business area, and if all of the business areas achieved a +1 point, it would have a collective impact on the company as a whole. So it's all about making maybe what at first seems like a really big goal feel much closer and much more achievable for people. And it's also a really good time to point out people's strengths, because people tend to go straight to the, oh my goodness, our scores are slightly low, where do I need to begin? Whereas actually they can really miss some of their strength areas. So one of our big teams in Sky had the highest score for collaboration across the organisation, but they'd missed it because their ESAT or engagement score was a bit lower. And actually collaboration is really important to our business, so that was something they could absolutely celebrate and share their learnings with colleagues. So there were some tips in quick succession. Let me just summarise those for you. So the first one was all around transparency. So the more people can see, the more they understand, the better the action. The second one was around busting the myths. So focusing on what's in your control. Remember to tell people why you're doing it. And the last one was around collective impact. So +1 feels achievable, and if every team did it, it has a big collective impact on the organisation. So now we'll move on to doing one thing brilliantly. So my advice here is keep it simple. So rather than focus on lots of scores or lots of questions or all the feedback, you can see a real impact when you do one thing brilliantly. So if we think about that driver impact report, you know, I shared with business HR, if there's something on there that's showing a really high correlation and teams really focus on that, it can have a big impact. So here we can see some examples of really big teams in Sky. So in Ireland, they focused on growth. So you can see the question there is, I have good opportunities to learn and grow. And they started sharing when people have been promoted. They launched a monthly Grow at Sky campaign, and they rolled out some leadership and manager development. In Sky Production Services, so you can see in the picture there, that's our people like our camera crews, our makeup teams, all the people that get the content on TV. They increased for leadership, so the focus was on I have confidence in my leadership team. They actually increased the networking amongst themselves and did some showcases to share what they'd been doing with their own teams to learn from each other, and they made themselves more visible. And then Sky News, they focused on manager, so I would recommend my manager to others. So they all participated in a manager development program. They talked about the results as a whole department together, which was the first time they'd done that, and they just put a real emphasis all on the role of the line manager in Sky News. And all of them saw in the space of a year an increase on those drivers. So you can see Ireland Growth went up 6 points, Sky Production Services Leadership went up 9 points, and Sky News Manager went up 1 point. Now you may be looking and thinking, well, that's only 1 point, but remember the last slide, they were coming from a slightly different starting point. They have an untraditional hierarchy. They don't have a routine for face-to-face interactions because they have journalists and reporters all over the world, and the entire team are always ready to respond to breaking news. So they were starting from a place of, well, what does a good line manager look like in Sky News? So they were really pleased with that progress. And even better, all of them saw an increase on their ESAT. So by doing that one thing brilliantly, they saw an overall impact on their engagement results in the space of a year. And my belief is that's because people could see and feel something happening that was really tangible. So actually when that question, how happy are you working with Sky, came round again, you know, people felt slightly differently a year on, which was brilliant. What I'm going to talk about now is how to talk about engagement all year and what we've been doing at Sky. So talking engagement all year, not just when there's a survey. So whenever our people have fueled a decision or an idea, we're sure to let people know that it's been fueled by your feedback. And there are tons of examples. I've just picked 3 to share with you today. So one of the many brilliant things about Sky is the Sky Forum. So this is a bunch of employees who have been elected by their peers through a formal process to make Sky even better for colleagues and customers. They all have regular jobs in Sky, and they get 12 days a year allocated to be a forum rep. So some of those days are spent in big meetings like this in the picture. And what we ask them to do is they're regularly talking to their leaders about what people are saying and what people are thinking all year round. So the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ideas, the crazy suggestions, to see if we can turn that into making Sky even better. So whenever we share what forum reps have been up to with a business, we're sure to let people know that they've been busy amplifying the voices of the people that voted them in. And when the leaders are together with the reps, it gives them the opportunity to share their current priorities, so that everyone gets that sense of the bigger picture. So it's a really cool way of making a big business feel like a much smaller place, because we get all of these people in the room and we've got voices at every level from every type of work in one place, talking about what's most important to Sky as a business, what's most important to Sky for our people, and what's most important to Sky for our customers. And then if I just move on, the next page shows some examples of the kinds of things that forum reps have been involved in over the last 6 months. So the grey examples here are things focused predominantly on people, and the blue on customer. So you can see things like shift patterns, healthier menus, shorts for the engineers. I mean, that was massive. You know, the guys had the same uniform all year round. They were saying in the summer, we're boiling, can we please have shorts? And the forum reps made that happen through amplifying the voice of their constituents through that real feedback cycle, and you know, we made it happen. And then you can see for customers, so Messenger, that's like an online messaging service rather than needing to phone in if somebody's got a query. So forum reps really fueled all of these things based on the feedback from all of their constituents, and some of those things are really job specific or site specific or location specific, for example the Amazon lockers, but they make a real difference to the people working in those areas. And the other thing that they do is they shape some of the really big things that are company-wide, the company-wide initiatives. So Be Yourself is all around inclusion. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Sky VIP is our customer loyalty program, and the reps in all of our customer-facing roles were a huge influence on making this happen. And then obviously the people survey itself, so sharing ideas with the leaders and being a sense check for action planning. So if leaders are thinking, I think this is where we're going to focus, we want to do this one thing brilliantly because this is the interpretation that I've taken, the forum rep is in a fantastic position to be the sanity check and that sense check before they move straight into action. So absolutely tons of stuff gets fueled by feedback through the forum as well as the people survey itself. And then the next example is our move to modern learning. So we're shifting away from classroom-based learning to a digital learning experience that's available anytime to anyone, anywhere. You know, if I think about my own learning, I will Google something quite often because I want to find out the answer here and now. And the reason that we've done that is because people told us in the people survey that opportunities for growth or development are really, really important, and waiting for something that not everybody had access to, so booking onto a classroom-based program that was maybe in a site that wasn't their own site, just wasn't always hitting the mark for people. So what we've been doing instead is developing our own content on a platform called Loop that we can push out to managers at different stages of the people cycle, so things like recognition or performance reviews, those kinds of things, but also for new line managers or managers that are handling change or something like that. We can push content to people at the appropriate time. And then the thing that we've been doing for all employees is we've given everybody LinkedIn licenses. So for anybody that's familiar with that, LinkedIn generates content based on your profile and your preferences. So you can, you know, if there's something you want to learn around in your current role or you're thinking about a move into a different role, LinkedIn can really personalise the experience for you. And again, we've rolled out those licenses to everybody. And then the last point there is that actually people still really value the peer-to-peer sessions and the face-to-face and the networking and hearing examples from people in similar roles. So we still do 90-minute bite-sized sessions, but we manage those locally in each of the locations so that they're more accessible and we can deliver them at the point of need, rather than needing to book onto something that feels like that's a long way away. So when we went big with this campaign and we rolled out, the fact that we were moving to modern learning and this Be Curious campaign, we absolutely made sure that it was because that was something that people had told us it was really important to them in the people survey, and that their feedback and their growth and their development was important, and they wanted to be able to access more things more frequently. And then the final example is all of our focus on inclusion at Sky. So we went pretty big at the end of September. We had National Inclusion Week here in the UK, and what we wanted to do was wrap up all the wonderful things that were going on under one umbrella and talk about that as a whole piece. So it was something that felt relevant to everybody, and it was something everybody could be a part of, and it was something everybody could make an impact on, making Sky a great place to work for everyone. And we naturally worked with the forum reps to say, this is our thinking, this is where we're going, what do you think, how do you think people will respond to that, can you go and get feedback from your constituents? We spoke to our employee networks as well, and we got their feedback too, and they helped to shape this whole week focusing on be yourself, so inclusion at Sky, and all of the messaging and the tone and the key messages that we wanted to land that week were absolutely shaped by people's feedback. And the forum reps and the employee networks, you can see some of them in the picture here, were huge ambassadors and mobilised really big physical presence in our sites, but also on social media and our internal kind of social channels as well, talking around the message of what does inclusion mean to you, because it's something quite personal, but it means something to everybody. And they really helped bring it to life. We had a week's takeover on all of our digital platforms. You can see the blurry Sky thing there. People were going up and putting their thumbprint on the Sky logo, because actually, we want people to come to work and we want them to make their mark on the organisation. That was an awesome week, and we're really delighted because just last Friday, actually, we've just been ranked at number 11 in the top 50 inclusive employers in the UK, and I just think that's absolute success of lots of voices fueling and shaping something for the organisation to make sure it was successful for everybody. So that was very cool. So, to sum up everything we've covered, first off, we talked about positioning engagement as a big deal, predominantly for leaders, but actually for everybody. We talked about how to provide confidence for HR business partners to get ready for those conversations with leaders and deliver results out to the organisation. We talked about the survey branding, having a real prominent identity so that people recognised it when it landed and knew it was important and they were going to get results quickly. We also shared the tips, so we've got the transparency, so the more people can see, the more they believe, the more they can do. Busting the myths, so being really clear about what's in people's own gift to influence and what will be taken care of elsewhere. And then we talked about the collective impact too, so that +1 feels really achievable, and actually if everybody did it, it has a really huge collective impact on the organisation. And then we talked about, the action planning itself, and that was a really simple thing, do one thing and do it brilliantly and talk about it all the time and remind people that you're doing it because of people's feedback in the people survey. And then we just finished up there on talking about feedback all year. So not just the people survey, but anything else that's going on in the organisation that's based on people's feedback. Letting people know that this has been fueled by people's feedback is all really, really powerful for engagement. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I believe we're over to some questions now.
Yes, we are going to turn to our audience questions in just a moment, but we do have a couple of announcements before we start. SHRM thanks Glint for sponsoring this program and SHRM's series of free webcasts. Glint is a people success platform that leverages real-time people data to help global organizations increase employee engagement, develop their people, and improve business results. Glint's on-demand dashboards and reports use artificial intelligence to provide recommended focus areas and action plans, as well as alerts to predict attrition and performance issues. For more information, visit glintinc.com. Okay, let's start here with some general questions that have come in from our audience. One of our audience members asked, can you define in your organization who is considered an HR business partner?
Yeah, sure. So in Sky, our business partners really do just that. So they partner with the most senior people in each area. So if we take Sky News as an example, we'll have like the director and their leadership team, and the business partner will work with those people right at the very top to focus on their people strategies to achieve their goals, and then the rest of the HR community focus on other areas.
When you were doing the survey at the very beginning of the program about barriers to actions, one of the audience members typed in, when it comes to barriers to action, our biggest challenge is always getting upper management on board. Any suggestions on winning over a leadership team that in general is resistant to change?
Yes, I think the utility business I worked at, we had huge ambitions as an organisation. We had just been sold, we had a new CEO, we had new shareholders, we had lots to go for. We really needed to focus on all of our business performance. So the thing that really helped to influence those people in that situation was actually being able to relate employee engagement to financial performance. So we were able to share research from outside the organisation, but also when we were making the decision to focus on going for that public recognition, and they could share with us all the employees that have been through their own accreditation, that was the bit that was like, okay, so this does really have an impact on financial performance as well, and that's going to make the shareholders happy too. So it was really about linking it to what were the things that were most important to them, maybe the things that were keeping them up at night in terms of the business performance, and seeing it as something that was absolutely going to help the organisation to achieve that rather than something else that we needed to think about.
Let's turn to some questions that have come in about your experiences with surveying employees, and start here with some questions on creating the survey. Audience member asks, how often do you survey your people, and how do you decide which questions to ask? Another audience member has asked, how many questions do you think should be in an engagement survey?
Great question, thank you. So we are surveying every 6 months in Sky, and we're down to 20 questions now. So previously we asked around 50. At the utilities business, we asked around 70. I think we've got a bit of an ambition to maybe reduce that even further one day. But when Sky partnered with Glint to move over to a new provider, one of the big things that we did was really think about asking our people the questions that were the most important to our people. So they were great in helping us determine what that was. And one of the other things that we did, which I think has been really helpful for line managers, was rather than having, manager as a driver and then a series of questions that went with it, we have one question with one driver. So what that means is when managers get results, that they're not getting confused by different sets of information that are coming in. If they've got different sources of information, well, that's saying I'm a good manager and that's saying I need to do more. We just went for the one question that we thought was going to resonate the most with our people.
On taking the survey, let me put together a couple of questions that are similar. One of our audience members writes, here's my dilemma. I work as an HR manager for a manufacturer contractor. Most of the skilled blue-collar workers are in the field and many can't operate a PC. What do you recommend for this type of working environment? E-surveys just won't work. Another audience member asks, do you have employees who don't have access to a computer, and if so, did they also participate in the survey, and how?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of examples. So I worked for an organisation that had manufacturing sites. They had no online access, and the HR community would go in and literally work out how to pull people off the production lines, do a little bit of an introduction session face-to-face first, and then people would be given time within their shift to participate in the survey, and then there was an anonymous box that they could drop it in at the end. So, if they wanted to leave it blank and they didn't want to participate, nobody would know, but they were absolutely given the opportunity to do it. And then in the utilities business, so the engineers would arrive at all the depots in the morning. They also had no online access. So it was paper-based again. So we distributed the paper surveys to all of the managers that led the depots with some instructions. And again, they made time for the engineers to take part in the survey before they went out on their kind of work rota for that day. And again, envelopes, anonymous box, or they could take it home and they could post it with a free postage message envelope too. So we made time for people to do it within their existing shift pattern. It was paper-based. It takes a lot more work, but we absolutely wanted everybody to have their say and be able to take part in the survey. So it took a lot more planning, but it was absolutely worth it because, generally the people that perhaps don't have that online access can account for a huge proportion of your organisation. So it's really important to get their feedback too.
Another audience member asks, what do you think of providing incentives for participation? For example, gift certificates, time off, or 100% participation. Could this skew results?
So honestly, I'm not a fan of incentives. I'm much more in the belief that if you can create a sense of this is really important and will act on your results, you will see a high response rate anyway. I think for the areas that see low response rates, the things that tend to change it is that kind of fueled by feedback drumbeat that I was talking about. So if people hear about something regularly and they know that it's important and their leaders are really responding to the results and they're doing something with them and they see things improved, more people typically take part the next time round. So I would much more encourage that people believe in the process rather than they do it for an incentive.
Questions about measuring engagement. Can you give us an idea of the KPIs that you used to measure engagement?
Okay, so in the utilities business, because we were going for that public recognition, we used their accreditation process. So we were keen to understand what that looked like and how that worked. And, it's all around setting achievable targets. So the first year that we took part, we wanted to get a base rate, and then we decided from there what the next steps were going to be. And I think at Sky, again, we don't necessarily set specific numbers for people to reach for. So, if somebody got 76 this year, we don't say they must achieve 78 the next year. What we tend to incentivise, our leaders on is, well, what are the things that people are saying that are really important? You need to be making a difference. So the KPI would be around improvement, but not a specific score, because otherwise people tend to get too focused on the score itself, and that's not always sustainable. Whereas actually if people can focus on the thing that people are saying and make a sustainable change, the scores will go up naturally. So the score is the outcome rather than the target.
Another audience member asks, did you try to quantify the results from open-ended questions in your survey? And how do you maintain confidentiality when analyzing and reporting qualitative data?
Okay, so one of the things I absolutely love about the Glint tool is that the way that we've designed with Glint is that under each question, employees can leave a comment specific to that question. So past experience would be employees would answer all the questions and then there was maybe 1 or 2 or 3 free text boxes at the end, and trying to analyse that was a bit of a challenge. Whereas what the Glint platform does for us is people can respond underneath each question, and then it uses artificial intelligence to analyse the themes and the trends and what are some of the prescriptive things that people are saying that's most helpful for people to think about taking actions. And then in response to the anonymous piece, so teams only get results if 10 or more people have responded. People's names aren't attributed to what they've said, but we're quite open with employees that if they have said something or used a phrase or a word that they commonly use in their everyday, people may identify them just from what they've written, but we absolutely don't deliver this person said this. So it's very transparent, but we absolutely don't name who said what.
Another audience member asks, my company has been going through a business transformation with a focus on expense control and efficiency improvement. As a result, we've had employee layoffs and reorganizations, and we've seen a significant dip in our employment engagement scores, with specific drops in questions like, I feel secure to speak up, and I feel optimistic about the future of the company. My question is, during business transformations and layoffs, what are best practices leaders and HR business partners can adapt to keep employee engagement from dropping significantly?
So I think the biggest one here is one of the things we talked about today is transparency. So in my experience, employees are much happier knowing what's going on, even if they don't like what's going on. So if I answer that question in the opposite, almost the worst thing that I think you can do is not give people information, because what tends to happen then is in the absence of information, people will make it up, and they talk to each other, and they'll, that will just grow and grow and grow. So even if you're not going to be able to tell people something until next Thursday, let people know that you can't tell them until next Thursday, and that can often be enough to maintain. You may not see an increase if you're going through big change, but actually what people really value is that trust and that transparency, and I know that you're going to tell me as much as you can tell me when you can tell me.
Some questions on reporting results. Audience member writes, you discussed sharing the results. What mechanisms did you use to do that? Was it email or webinar? Was it in-person meetings?
So with at the utilities business, they were PDF reports that I used to go around and present to the leadership teams, and then I would then go on to the next layer of the leadership teams, and then I would encourage them to go and share them with their own employees. So, I really enjoyed doing that because I learned a lot about the business, and I was in a good opportunity to respond to any questions directly as people were interpreting their results. But again, one of the things that I love about the Glint platform is it's an online tool. So literally the day after the survey closed, we sent an email out to all the managers that had 10 or more respondents that said, here are your login details. Here's some tips for navigating the tools. Here's some really good advice for how to approach your action planning. And if you want some more information, you can click here and go on the intranet page to where we're holding all of that information. And if you need some more support, here are some targeted support sessions. So we really packaged that up for managers. They could log in straight away. It's web-based, so literally once they've set up their username and password, they can access their results at any time, and they can see the questions, the scores, how they compared to their business area. They can look at the comments. They can export stuff into Excel if they want to look at stuff separately. They can drop images into slides if they want to present, or they can just take their laptop along to a team meeting, open up a web browser and log into the tool direct. So it's really, really easy.
And we'll close with this question. Audience member asks, you've indicated that you've worked in a number of industries. How similar or dissimilar are the challenges at an entertainment company like Sky from companies in, say, healthcare or manufacturing?
Great question. So I think, people are the similarity. So people are people. People like to know what's going on. People want to know what's expected of them. People like to be recognised when they've done a good job. All of those things, I think, are the similar. That's the absolute similar. I think the dissimilar is the organisation's purpose, and how an organisation talks about what's important and what they're trying to achieve. And I think one of the really beneficial things for internal communication and engagement is tuning in to what's most important for the organisation. So at the utility, it was all around keeping the lights on and making sure people had power in their homes and their hospitals, and the real purpose organisation where Sky, we're an entertainment business. We take great pleasure in delighting people through watching great content with their families in their homes. So absolutely great question. You've got some real similarities in people, but it's the organisation that's different.
Well, thank you. With that question and answer, we are going to bring today's webcast to a close. We're going to shut the program window in about 90 seconds, so this is your chance to download your certificate or the program PDF. When the window closes, you'll see an evaluation form pop up. We hope you'll fill that out. It helps us assess this event and plan for future webcasts. As we sign off, we have a couple of final thanks. First to our presenter, Catherine Garrod from Sky, for the insights she shared today. And we want to thank you in the audience for participating and for choosing SHRM for HR Webcasts. That concludes today's program.